Villains are not born with evil in their hearts. They are made by the circumstances, struggles, and losses they endure. And no villain shows this transformation better than the Joker. He wasn't always Gotham's greatest threat. He was once just a man, beaten down by life and betrayed by the very system meant to protect him. The Joker's madness isn't random or without reason. It's his response to a world that never cared about his suffering. His laughter is a bitter reaction to the world's indifference. Villains like the Joker make us question, what is right? What is wrong? How easy is it for someone, even a hero, to cross that line? In the end, we realize that heroes and villains may not be so different after all. They are two sides of the same coin. One fights for order, the other embraces chaos. But both are shaped by the same broken world. This is how villains are made. And this story starts with the Joker, a man who had everything taken from him and chose to become something else. The Joker, perhaps the most infamous villain of all, wasn't born evil. He was shaped by the failures of society, a society that left him behind when he needed it most. His fall into madness, especially as portrayed in The Killing Joke, is the tragic story of a man who once had hope, only to watch it crumble. Before the Joker became Gotham's most feared criminal, he was just an ordinary man, a failed comedian, desperate to support his family and struggling with constant rejection. He wasn't a villain then, just a man lost in the cracks of society. But when his world was shattered, when his wife died in a terrible accident and his dreams collapsed, it became the breaking point. Society turned a blind eye. His pain didn't matter, and it was that indifference that pushed him over the edge. In The Killing Joke, the Joker famously says, "All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy." It's a chilling statement, and it captures the essence of his philosophy. The Joker believes that anyone, no matter how moral or righteous, can be broken. His transformation from an ordinary man to a symbol of chaos wasn't the result of one event. It was a series of devastating moments that eroded his sense of reality and morality piece by piece. This perspective forces us to confront a terrifying truth. Villains like the Joker aren't rare. They are not monsters created in isolation. They are the products of a world that fails to support those on the edge. Society didn't just create the Joker by ignoring his pain. It made him by refusing to care. In a way, Gotham's greatest villain is its greatest failure, a reminder that neglect and indifference can lead to unimaginable consequences. Villains, especially those as complex as the Joker, are often shaped by trauma. But trauma alone does not create a villain. It is how one responds to that trauma that determines their path. The Joker chose to embrace the chaos, to revel in destruction as a response to his pain. But what if he had chosen differently? Many stories of villainy are rooted in trauma, loss, betrayal, humiliation. It is this trauma that distorts their worldview, turning their pain outward toward the world. In the Joker's case, his response was to reject the very notion of morality, to laugh in the face of a world that had shown him no mercy. This rejection of societal norms is what sets him apart, but it also forces us to ask, how many other villains are born from a similar place of pain? The Joker's story highlights the fragility of the human mind. How easily can one bad day push someone to the brink? How quickly can someone lose their sense of right and wrong when the world offers no solace? At the core of the Joker's philosophy is the idea that morality is a lie, a convenient construct used by society to impose order. For him, the concept of good and evil is arbitrary, defined by those in power to maintain control. But if morality is nothing more than a social contract, what happens when someone like the Joker refuses to abide by it? The Joker's actions force us to confront the fragility of morality itself. Are there universal principles of right and wrong, or is morality subjective, determined by circumstance and perspective? The Joker revels in this ambiguity, constantly pushing the boundaries of what we consider acceptable. His crimes are not just acts of violence, they are philosophical statements, challenging the very notion of a moral order. In this sense, The Joker is not merely a villain. He is a philosophical force, a living embodiment of chaos. He tests the limits of our belief in justice and fairness, revealing the flaws in systems that claim to uphold these values. And in doing so, he forces us to question our own understanding of what it means to be good. Heroes and villains are not born in isolation. They are products of the world they inhabit. Both are shaped by the systems around them. The same world that creates a hero also creates the villain. But the difference between them lies in their choices, in how they respond to a world that is often unfair and broken. Take Gotham, for example. It's a city plagued by crime, corruption, and suffering. This environment shaped both Batman and the Joker. Both experienced trauma. Both felt the weight of loss and hardship. Yet, Batman chose to fight for justice, to use his pain as fuel to bring order to the chaos around him. The Joker, on the other hand, chose a path of destruction. He embraced the very chaos Batman seeks to contain, using it as his weapon against a world that had abandoned him. Society plays a crucial role in shaping these figures. For the Joker, society's failures, the lack of support, the neglect of the vulnerable, pushed him over the edge. He is a product of the cracks in the system, a reflection of everything that's wrong with Gotham. Batman, on the other hand, is shaped by the same environment but chooses to rise above it. He tries to fix the very system that the Joker seeks to tear down. This dynamic shows that heroes and villains are not so different. They are both responses to the same world, but where one chooses to work within the system, even as flawed as it is, the other rejects it entirely. Society, then, doesn't just create villains, it also creates heroes, and the line between them is often much thinner than we'd like to admit. To fully understand the Joker's rejection of society's rules, we can turn to the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most influential thinkers to challenge conventional morality. Nietzsche argued that concepts of good and evil are not absolute, but are instead created by society to maintain control. In his works, such as Beyond Good and Evil and The Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche explores how the ruling class defines morality in a way that serves their interests, and how the oppressed must accept these values to survive. The Joker, in many ways, embodies Nietzsche's critique. He refuses to abide by society's moral codes, seeing them as meaningless constructs. To him, right and wrong are just illusions that people cling to because they are too afraid to accept the chaos that truly defines the world. The Joker's actions reflect this belief. He doesn't follow any rules. Instead, he creates his own twisted sense of freedom by rejecting the moral codes of the society that abandoned him. In Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, he describes a person who transcends the traditional values of good and evil to create their own set of values. While the Joker might seem like a distorted version of this idea, he takes it to a destructive extreme. Instead of creating new values, he chooses to destroy the existing ones. For the Joker, freedom comes not from building something new, but from tearing down what already exists. The Joker's embrace of chaos also ties into Nietzsche's will to power, which is the drive to assert one's will over others. But for the Joker, this power is not about control in the conventional sense. He doesn't want to rule Gotham. He wants to expose the fragility of its structures and show that, deep down, the world is meaningless. His nihilism and rejection of morality make him an unpredictable force, one that pushes back against everything society stands for. The line between hero and villain is often thinner than we think. Both are shaped by the same world, molded by the same circumstances. But while the hero chooses to uphold the system, the villain rejects it. Take Batman and the Joker, for example. Both are products of Gotham's corruption and decay. Both have experienced loss, trauma, and hardship. Yet their responses to this broken world are entirely different. Batman chooses to fight for justice, to bring order to the chaos. The Joker, on the other hand, embraces the chaos, using it as a weapon against the very system Batman seeks to protect. This dichotomy forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The hero and the villain are not so different after all. They are shaped by the same forces, but their choices set them on opposing paths. And in this opposition, They define each other. Without the Joker, Batman's mission would lack purpose. Without Batman, the Joker's chaos would have no meaning. This dynamic speaks to a deeper truth about the nature of good and evil. Heroes and villains are not born. They are created by the same world, and the line between them is far more fragile than we often realize. In the end, villains like the Joker force us to confront the darkest parts of ourselves. They challenge our understanding of morality, justice, and order. They expose the flaws in the systems we trust and the fragility of the moral codes we follow. But perhaps the most disturbing truth is this: villains are not born. They are shaped by the world around them, just as much as heroes are. The Joker is a product of Gotham's failures, a reflection of its corruption, its indifference, and its brokenness. In this way, the Joker is not just Batman's villain, he is Gotham's villain. And in a broader sense, he is society's villain, a reminder that when we fail to support those on the margins, when we ignore the cracks in our systems, we risk creating monsters. As Nietzsche warned, beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. The Joker, in many ways, is a reflection of this very truth. He is the villain we create, the shadow that follows us, reminding us of the darkness that resides within every one of us.